Businesses come in all shapes and sizes. But when it comes to SaaS businesses, it's truer than ever. There are VC-backed businesses, there's bootstrap businesses, and now there's also micro SaaS businesses. Here's a big question though. What is a micro SaaS business? And where does micro SaaS as a strategy really shine? And where are you doomed to fail if you actually follow it? So in this episode, I'm going to dig through the 3 principles that you absolutely need to know about micro SaaS, about when to follow this strategy, and how to be successful with it. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS founders like you grow your SaaS businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit the subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you will get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this channel, if you're part of this community, if you're part of my SaaS go-to-market and launch coaching programs, my people, welcome back. It's really awesome to see you over here. Now, I'm gonna date myself here, but that's okay. I remember the first software I ever sold. I was about 14 years old and I taught myself how to code, and I built this little tool for my dad's consulting business. He consulted other people on how to build prepaid calling card companies. In prepaid calling cards, you really had to figure out what was your wholesale rate and your retail rate, and you had to calculate the difference and figure out how you can get to a break-even point and also how to maximize on profits. And so I built this little software because we were doing that for our own prepaid calling card business, and I built this little software. And I remember that first time I sold that software on a CD-ROM for $50. And it was like the most amazing moment because I was like, oh my God, I can build code, I can write code, I can build something, I can solve a business problem, and people will pay me for it. And back then, those little pieces of software you could download off of websites and BBSs. I know I'm dating myself. And it was called shareware. That's what really got me into my love for software. Fast forward 15 years after starting and selling to companies, helping sell to more companies that bought my companies. Now, I'm deep in software, but it always brings me back to those original days when those little tools I used to download and try out, and I never paid for it because I didn't have any money to spend on software. But the software that I built and charged for $50 made me realize that old is new again and new is old. Micro SaaS businesses are all the rage now, and they're just like those little pieces of software that you used to be able to sell online or on a BBS, and people would pay with a credit card $30 or something for a license. That is true again. And so on this episode, given everything that I know and being in SaaS, being in software for probably way too long than I should admit to right now, I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles you absolutely need to know to be successful with a micro SaaS strategy. So if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. And let's go to principle number 1. So the first principle to think about is, when should you use micro SaaS and when should you not? And the best way I like to think about it is based on TAM, total addressable market. The market you're going after and the size of it can really help you figure out whether micro SaaS is a good idea or not. So if you are going after an immense TAM, a really, really big TAM, it's a huge market, a massive, massive market, the chances are you're better off with a VC-backed play. The reason is other people will realize it's a massive market and there's a huge opportunity, and they will raise VC funding. So it becomes an arms race, and you will have to be able to compete at that level. This is also the type of business that VCs love. The only thing VCs really care about is really large, fast growing markets. So if your TAM is massive, don't try to do a micro SaaS, at least I wouldn't, because the competitive dynamics will not help you win there. Then you get into the middle size, right? Let's just say it's a medium-sized bootstrap market, a medium-sized total addressable market, not necessarily just bootstrap. If you're going after a medium-sized market, almost automatically the best VCs in the world will opt out of that. They'll say, look, this market's just not big enough. It's not getting big enough. Sometimes they might be wrong and sometimes they might be right. In the early days of Uber, VCs thought that market wasn't big enough, but they expanded their TAM. But it may very well be that the market's big, but not big enough for VC. And these are cases where bootstrap companies can thrive. Bootstrap companies, the best bootstrap companies that I've seen, actually have cash flows from another business that they reinvest into a bootstrap software company. Sometimes they have cash flows from another business and customers from another business that they can go sell their software to. So they fund it with the cash flows and the profits, and then they sell it back to the people they got the cash flows from and the profits from. Those are some of the best bootstrap businesses that I see out there. especially in SaaS. And for those bootstrap businesses, they tend to go after medium-sized total addressable markets. Number one, because VCs don't want to compete in there, so you don't have unfair competitive dynamics. And number two, there's a clear market and there's huge upsides and profits that they can realize because the market's big enough or medium enough. Then if you go to the smallest side of market, if you go after a very niche market, a very small total addressable market, automatically VCs will not be interested. Bootstrap companies may not be interested because they're like, why are we going to take our cash flows, which we can get 15% on the S&P 500 or 9%? This is not investment advice, just ballpark numbers. Why would we invest it into this business that just doesn't yield that much? We'll put in a software company if the market's medium-sized enough. And so this is where micro SaaS businesses, smaller self-funded businesses, something maybe even you do as a side project, going after a very specific market, a very small market, is worth it because you're not experiencing any sort of opportunity cost, right? You're just putting in your own time, your effort, maybe a little bit of your savings, and you're building out these tiny little software companies that actually just print money. And it doesn't have to be $1 million a month. It could be thousands of dollars a month or a couple of $100,000 a month. And that could still be considered a really good business, a small business in a micro SaaS space. And so that's principle number one. You really want to think about what your total addressable market is. And the micro SaaS strategy tends to do better in this more niche market, in the smaller markets. If you're in the larger markets, then it may be too competitive, or the dynamics may be too competitive, or you might not have enough of an arsenal to really compete and win with a micro SaaS strategy. That's principle number one. Now, you might be wondering, okay, cool, if I have a very specific market I want to go solve a problem for, what does micro SaaS look like and how is it different from a traditional SaaS business, for example? The biggest thing I could tell you, sometimes, with micro SaaS, it's almost self-explanatory, and I don't want to be like Captain Obvious, but obviously a micro SaaS is more of a tool rather than a platform or a full solution. It's a software, and you can sign up for it, you can pay monthly for it, maybe there's a freemium, all those things are true, but it tends to be more of a tool, something that it's got a single purpose utility versus some big solution, big platform. That's what micro SaaS tends to be. But as you're thinking about micro SaaS, you may also want to think about the second principle, which tells you exactly what defines a micro SaaS. Micro SaaS companies tends to be niche specific. So we already covered that. This kind of builds on principle one, where you want to go after a very specific segment of the market. Very, very specific market. It's very niche. It also has a clear ROI. There's lots of SaaS products out there where it's a big transformation. It's a big solution. It's got a big promise. It may be a big investment. Micro SaaS is the exact opposite of that. It's literally like, this will help you do this. Boom, done. I have this one small micro SaaS that I built over the holidays, and we really put it together, and it's been really cool. It's a go-to-market grader. And the go-to-market grader, you can check it out, gtm-grader.com. It's a micro SaaS, and it just does one thing. It grades your go-to-market machine. Like, you put in the numbers, and it generates it for you, and gives you the training. It's like super simple. That's a micro SaaS. It's got a clear ROI. There's no big, huge transformation. There's no big onboarding. It's super simple and easy to get into and use and get value from. And that's what a micro SaaS is best at. Also, micro SaaSes tend to be product-led. Given the dynamics of the small market, the small deal sizes, the very clear ROI, that it's a tool, you really can't charge a whole lot of money for micro SaaS companies. And so for those tools, you have to be product-led. It has to be driven by the software doing the selling versus a salesperson. Also, what I've seen with most micro SaaS companies is they almost always leverage a marketplace. Whether it's the Shopify ecosystem or a WordPress plugin or a Chrome extension, or a Salesforce plugin that's very small, they're almost always hooking in to some broader marketplace and then using that as their product-led growth model to actually drive revenues instead of spending a whole lot of money on marketing, because you really can't spend a lot of money on marketing because your margins are not that great and your prices are not that great. Now, I might be saying this in a way where it sounds like I poo-poo on micro SaaS business. It's not true. I actually really like micro SaaS companies, and I experiment with those kind of products all the time whenever I feel like I can build something that helps people in our audience or in our community or the founders that I serve, which is why I created that go-to-market grader. These are the principles that I followed for really successful micro SaaS products. If you're going to do it, make sure you go after a very niche market. Make sure that you have a clear ROI. Make sure you're following a product-led growth model, and make sure you can figure out if there's a marketplace that you can hook into to be successful. Now, before I go to principle number 3, let me just pause here for a second. Are you starting to get the power of this? Are you starting to get the power of how micro SaaS is so exciting? It's so interesting, especially in the broader SaaS ecosystem as we continue to get bigger and bigger. And are we starting to see how for certain strategies, for certain plays, micro SaaS is absolutely amazing strategy to use if you're solving a very specific problem for a very specific niche, for a very specific market, and you can get a clear ROI. If you're starting to see the power in this, can I just get a yes in the comments below? And also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really likes it when you do that. Also, if you're in the pre-revenue stage and you're working on that part where you're really trying to figure out your idea and you're trying to get to initial revenues, maybe you built a little product and you're like, well, how do I really get this going? I run a webinar every single week that walks you through some detailed principles on how to go from idea and initial product to initial revenues. It's completely free. I run it every week. Just go to tkcater.com/webinar. You don't have to go right now. I'll also link to it below. I'll tell you more about it in this episode. Let's go to principle number 3. And smash that like button if you haven't already before we go to principle number 3. Principle number 3 is, okay, if I know the market, if I know the type of product I'm building, how do I do this? How do I put it into play? The most important thing to understand about micro SaaS is you should have fun with it. You should play around with it. Sometimes founders overcomplicate starting SaaS companies, and if this is your first product, first company, if you're really getting into it, and we've got founders in this community and in my programs anywhere from pre-revenue all the way to 100 million ARR and more. And so I wanted to do an episode about people just starting out. That's why micro SaaS is a great way to start. Micro SaaSes are great because you don't have to have a lot of coding experience. You don't have to know a lot about the software business or SaaS companies. All you need to do is just solve a problem and make a small little thing and really get it out there. And a lot of times what I found is that opens up doors to bigger things and bigger ideas once you start getting your feet in there. This works a lot better than companies and founders that are trying to do this one big thing as their first company and get it right. The best founders you see out there started with almost like a little toy and then grew from there into bigger and bigger things. And so if you're getting into micro SaaS and you're like, cool, this is the strategy I want to follow, then principle number 3 is about how you implement it. So here's some pointers. How you implement it, you could look at building a plugin. Sometimes micro SaaS works best when it's a plugin to a bigger platform. It could be a WordPress plugin, a Shopify plugin, it could be a Salesforce plugin, a HubSpot plugin. What that allows you to do is hook into existing customers and solve a very, very niche specific problem with a clear ROI. And then you can hook into their marketplace. So plugins are a great way to start a micro SaaS product. The other thing you can do is you can use no-code tools, right? There are a lot of no-code tools. Bubble is one of them. I haven't dug into them enough because I code to really know which one to recommend, but I hear good things about Bubble and there are other ones out there. If you have a favorite one, put it in the comments below for others to see. But you can use no-code tools to build your initial micro SaaS product, and that can get you a lot out there just to get it moving and see what's out there. And remember, if you get a hit, you get a really successful micro SaaS product, you can always take the proceeds from that and invest it to rebuild a version 2 that's not based on no-code tools. So you can always reinvest to make it better, but the first version can be kind of dirty and very clear on here's all it does. It's not that great, but it's pretty good. But it's a game changer and who it's for. It could go a really long way to help you validate the market. And then the last piece is you can also just build it on a single page app. It's amazing how much you can get done with just a React front end and a Firebase back end. There's a lot you can do, and it can be very agile. You can get stuff out there to really test it, and that's really powerful. So you can do it in a single page app, and again, then you can revamp it over time if you've got something. Those are the 3 principles I had for you in terms of a micro SaaS business. Principle number one, let's recap. You want to think about TAM. Micro SaaS tends to do better with smaller markets, whereas if you go after a really large market, you'll be competing against VC and overfunded competitors, and maybe that's not the best way to play. Number 2, you want to be niche specific. You want to have a clear ROI. You want to follow a product-led growth model, and you want to hook into a marketplace so you get as much free marketing as possible. And number 3, don't try to build a monolith. Really think about it as a plugin, or build it on a no-code tool, or build a single page app just to get your start. Give that clear ROI for that very specific group of people. And who knows, a lot of times micro SaaS companies can graduate to much larger companies very easily, very quickly, because they realize, wow, that TAM is bigger than we thought, but we got to bulk up to really serve these people. So don't be ashamed about a micro SaaS. Don't be shy about a micro SaaS. Just own it and get in there, especially if this is your first product, first company, and then you can always grow it over time. And so now you know my 3 key principles on how to build a micro SaaS and how to think about it and when it's the right strategy. But what you may not know is how do you go from that initial idea or that initial product you've built to initial revenues. And so this is why I run a webinar every single week that goes into detail on how to go from that pre-revenue stage to initial revenues. And so if you want to watch that, it's completely free. Just go to tkcater.com/webinar. tkcater.com/webinar. Go in there, you put in your info, and we'll put you right into the training. It's super awesome. It's very detailed. It's a lot of step-by-step pieces that you want to think through. And it really is the next double click to like, okay, if you want to do a bootstrapped idea or a micro SaaS idea or a SaaS idea, period, how do you get from that product phase or the idea phase to initial revenues? I'll link to it below. Just go to tkcater.com/webinar. Now, if you liked this video, if you got value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It really likes it when you do that. And also, I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So if you haven't already, go ahead and hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. And if you have a fellow founder, a friend, an engineer that you know, if you're part of a Slack group or a WhatsApp group or mailing list where people would get value from these videos and this channel, please share this with them. I put these videos out. My team works together to come up with the topics and get it all out because we want to serve the SaaS community in the highest way possible. And so please share it with your friends and others and peers that would get value from this. It would mean the world to us. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is going to be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you in the next episode or inside of that webinar, tkcater.com/webinar, link also below.